Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland's tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
Now, good evening and welcome to Country Life here on Midlands 103. It is Wednesday, 13th of May 2026. Thank you for joining me here. MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m. I'll bring you all of the news from food, farming, agri-business from Laois, Offaly, Westmeath and further afield here for the next hour. Thank you all, as I said, for joining me. And in a moment, Adam Woods from the Irish Farmers Journal talks to us about Brazilian beef and a potential ban here in Europe. Also, this evening, Diageo have a new brewery in County Kildare. Will it benefit tillage farmers? Laoisman Bobby Miller from the Grain Growers Association will give his views on this. There's a new scheme which was announced today. Grant aid is available to support fencing off of water troughs. That's one of the measures. It's called the Badger Biosecurity Scheme. Up to about €2,000 available, I believe, 40% grant. David Hall from the IFA, he is the Animal Health Chair from County Monaghan. He's going to chat to me on that a little bit later. And he's also going to have a word on how the new TB rules are affecting you when you're going to the mart. Do you know what to do? Are you confused? What can occur in relation to this? David is going to have some views on that also. David Gernan from Teagasc, he gives us an insight into the mushroom industry here in Ireland and how growers are coping in the face of huge cost increases. There was a big mushroom day on last week in Teagasc. It was aimed at growers, so obviously the average farmer not in attendance. But one of the stats I came across was in the last 6 years, there's been a 78% increase in input costs in the mushroom sector since 2020. So to say it's challenging is an understatement, but more on how growers are working in the industry a little bit later. Towards the end of the hour, we have a forest owner. His name is Nicholas Sweetman, and he tells us about some upcoming forestry walking events. They're in Laois and Offaly here in the Midlands, and they are family focused and all are welcome. They're also free, so we're going to be talking about that towards the end of the hour. Now, text me or WhatsApp me here, 083 30 10 103. Happy to put in to our guests this evening. As I said, we are kicking off with Adam Woods, editor of the Irish Farmers Journal. Adam, many thanks for joining me this evening.
Good evening, MJ.
We're going to talk about Brazilian beef and a ban in a moment. It's your cover story tomorrow in the paper. But first, Adam, you were in Balmoral show yesterday and today. Tell me a little bit about it and what's the mood like up in the northern part of the country.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I guess a positive day. Lots of good cattle. It's a really good show. Numbers were good. Our stand was really busy all day. I guess farmers, similar to farmer concerns in the south, beef price up here has dropped £1 a kilo in the last 12 months, and milk is back probably 10, 11p as well a litre. So similar concerns to what we have in the south, and plus input costs. I guess a lot of worry there around where first fertiliser is going to go. I guess not too much worry probably for 2026, but a few farmers talking about 2027 and what will happen with supplies, and then fuel as well as regards contractor costs and fuel costs, very similar to us as regards where that's going. So a bit of worry there around margins for 2026. Having got a really good year in 2025, worry about 2026. And look at all the rest of them. TB, in terms of payments, I guess there's a whole new payment structure up here because they're out of the EU. So lots of chat and lots of opinions, but all in all, a pretty good day. Showers on and off, to be honest, and didn't help it round the ring for some of it, but I think it's given it better for Thursday and Friday. A lot of people up from counties all over Ireland today in Balmoral today.
Any word on grass growth up in that part of the world, Adam, or what was the talk on the weather? As you mentioned, a couple of showers. Wet and windy May is what we look for. We're getting lots of wind here in the Midlands anyway. We're not too much in the lines of anything else.
Yeah, there's a saying at home in Cabinet, cut you in two, and that probably typifies today in terms of Balmoral. I couldn't see grass growing an awful lot now up here today. There's a real harsh wind all day, and maybe an odd shower, and you just have to stand in out of it. So, weather hasn't been pretty conducive to grass growth, and I'd hope for a little bit warmer temperature. That's not coming until the end of the week, so we'll have to watch that one and see where we go. But grass, I'd say, has stagnated a little bit up here.
Yeah, same as across the rest of the country. So Brazilian beef faces ban in EU. Tell us about this, Adam, please.
Yes, so in 2024, the EU compiled a list of countries that they accept with the beef imports from. Brazil was on that list, but as of yesterday, Brazil is coming off that list, and that's as a result of their inadherence to antimicrobial resistance standards around antibiotic use in animals. They can't, trace the antibiotic use in animals. The EU aren't happy with that in terms of their standards and protocols, so they've taken them off that list, and they will be banned from exporting beef to Europe from the 3rd of September 2026. I guess I was out there in November. I walked into farm stores, I walked into shops. I was fit to buy antibiotics without, prescriptions, without identification, without, herd numbers, without Portuguese, to be honest. I just pointed at the antibiotics, and these were really high-level, critical antibiotics that are reserved, some of them reserved for use, just for human use in Europe, and yet I was fit to buy that bottle of antibiotic, a Mars bar, and give me a can of Coke along with it, and out I walked. And there's no system, I guess. The one thing buying the antibiotic, but there was no barcode on the bottle. And plus, the biggest issue of all is the traceability system. So we have a farm-to-fork system here where an animal is tagged at birth. Every medicine that goes into that animal is recorded on an electronic system, for argument's sake. Out there's nothing. So there's no tracing of movements, there's no tagging of animals. We've seen removal of tags. So in terms of giving Brazil, this is very frustrating in terms of giving Brazil until the 3rd of September to correct itself. In my mind, this will take years to implement the system out there. From what I've seen in Brazil on the ground in November 25, I couldn't see them ever being able to apply what we're doing here in a short time.
We also had that case, of course, I know the antibiotics, but there was a carcinogenic hormone detected in Brazilian beef as well. Like there's a lot to be dealt with when we're speaking about beef coming from that part of the world.
There is, but I guess on the other hand, it's good to see the EU moving on this, and maybe their standards and their application of their standards. Well, it's good to see them taking the decision to remove Brazil from this list. But what I would say is it needs to be removed. I've read some documentation today from the Commission, and we have it in the paper around. They've talked about the life cycle of the animals. So even if Brazil get their house in order before the 3rd of September, the animals born today under the current legislation won't be applicable to come into EU as a result of when they were born. It's not until that improved standards come into play that those animals born from then on will be eligible for Europe. So we'll watch that space. I guess the other thing is that this isn't a stop of South American beef coming into Europe. The Mercosur deal has been provisionally applied since the 1st of May. It still needs to go through the Parliament. Maybe this will sway the Parliament in some way in terms of seeing further degradation of standards out there. But Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay can still export beef to Europe. So I would reckon they will take up any slack there that Brazil won't fill.
Well, that was my next question, Adam. So you've answered. I was wondering, was it going to make any difference for Irish farmers? But in reality, probably not.
Probably not, but I guess this has always been about, relevant standards and the same standards that Ireland's farmers are applied to and European farmers have to adhere to, and we can never, I guess, argue against imports into Europe or imports into Ireland because we're exporting 90% of the beef that we produce here. All we can argue for is similar standards, and at the moment, those standards in Brazil versus Ireland, it's a difference of day and night there. So this is the right decision, it's the correct decision, and it should be implemented until Brazil are able to show that they can do something different.
Yeah, no, I think every beef farmer, every farmer in Ireland would agree with you on that. Adam, just a word on beef prices. We were speaking here over the last couple of weeks, different representatives from the farming bodies and whatnot, and we were talking, Joe Burke back maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, we're talking about the prices creeping up as the summer came upon us, but unfortunately that's not the case.
No, they're creeping the other way now. We're back to $650 base there for bullocks, $660 for heifers, possibly $670 for heifers there if you have a low going or maybe a regular customer. But there's talk of a bit more pressure coming next week. Really unfortunate to see because the cattle that are coming out of sheds now are probably the most expensive cattle of the year in terms of being bought in the autumn time, kept in a shed, didn't get out. So really, really expensive. Speaking to farmers, they're basically all they're doing is covering the cost of what those those animals cost in the autumn time, and feed costs are gone. So hugely frustrating. They're very worrying for some of them farmers in terms of the costs associated with that beef enterprise, and beef heading for 640, 650 a kilo. It's really it's a big hammer blow to those winter finishers. And to be honest, we thought that supplies would tighten a little. Look, the supplies still aren't big. We're just bordering there 30,000. It's not a big kill. Kill is back 85,000 on the year since 2025 and during the same period. So supplies aren't big, but I guess it's going back to that demand piece, and we're hearing from the UK in terms of pressure from New Zealand beef, Australian beef coming into the UK, displacing some Irish beef in food service channels. That's putting Irish beef back maybe to retail channels, and we're competing then with British beef there. So a little bit of pressure there, and that's probably feeding back, and possibly as well the high prices of 2025. In terms of reduced supply, we might have lost a little bit of ground there in the UK with some of our markets. So that could be coming back to bite us a little bit now too. So look, at hopefully you would see supplies maybe drying up another little bit in the next couple of weeks, but at the moment it's still under pressure.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say, and before we let you go, is that the March trade is still very strong in comparison, and you are seeing really strong prices being paid. So that confidence is still there. The beef farmer is a great individual to look long term with hope, wouldn't you say?
It is, and I guess you sort of three cohorts of people out there at the moment. You have the feedlots, and they seem to be maybe a little bit more active in the last week, actually, buying those forward stock cattle. So that would tell you maybe that they would see maybe a bit of a lull in supplies in the next maybe 2 months. Then you've got the grass buyers who go out and buy grass cattle every year, nearly regardless, and that's keeping that trade up. And then the weanlings is probably exporters, and exporters are still going pretty well. One exporter, a Scommon-based exporter, has 2,000 weanlings in quarantine at the moment, 2,200 actually, that'll be going out sort of mid-June. And there's a number of other exporters as well, very active in the last couple of days, buying for North Africa. So that's €6, maybe a little bit more in terms of some of those weanlings making. So really positive to see that, but it's just that finisher that's buying those cattle, really hard to see a margin in those.
Yeah, unfortunately. Adam, we will say thank you for joining me here on the programme. Enjoy Balmoral for the next couple of days, and we'll speak to you again.
Thanks, Andrew.
Adam Woods there, editor of the Irish Farmers Journal, and that is the news on Brazilian beef. So the European Commission are considering banning Brazilian meat imports, including beef, from entering the UK from the 3rd of September 2026. So look, it's a little away, but it is looking like it will come into play. And as Adam said there, it is really all about standards. When we're expected to farm to the standard we're farming here in Ireland, why should we be competing against substandard products? Just doesn't make any sense. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Bobby Miller from the Irish Grain Growers Association about a new facility Diageo have opened in County Kildare, and also David Hall from the IFA going to talk to us about this new Badger biosecurity scheme, where you have the potential to get a grant for some measures to ensure different parts of your farm are badger proof. So stay tuned for that.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years' experience, we provide top quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Now, in a moment, we are going to be talking about TB and badgers with David Hall from the IFA. But in advance of that, Bobby Miller from the Irish Grain Growers Association joins me. Bobby, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Thanks very much, MJ. Yeah, no problem at all.
You're more than welcome, Bobby. It's about a new facility, new brewery, which Diageo have opened in County Kildare, and obviously Diageo of Guinness fame and lots other alcoholic beverages as well, but the main one being Guinness. They've opened this to much fanfare on Monday, got lots of media attention, and I suppose the question is, Bobby, is it going to benefit Irish tillage farmers?
Time will tell, MJ. It is welcome. Any investment in towards the tillage sector is always welcome. They're already looking to double their capacity there, so demand is there. So hopefully they'll want to use native Irish grain going forward and pay enough for it to keep us in business as well. So we have competition elsewhere for the land use from the likes of the dairy sector. So margin at the end of the day is going to rule whether this is a good thing. It is good news for the sector, but time will tell whether it's going to lift our margins going forward as tillage farmers.
Yeah, well, you nailed it there, Tommy. Bobby, I should say, they have to pay enough to make a margin so you can continue production. I suppose breweries, years ago, listen, there was no shortage of demand when it came to alcoholic beverages, but we're entering a different time, if you will, now. We're in a different era whereby demand for alcoholic beverages not as strong, but the 0-0 market is what's keeping things tipping along.
Yeah, you're same again, MJ. You're hitting the nail on the head. Demand, the change in attitudes towards alcoholic drink has changed. Demand has decreased around Europe, around the world. But the likes of the 0-0s, whether it's Diageo or Heineken or any beer, has been a welcome boost to those sectors, and it led to the development in Newbridge there as well. It definitely played its part, the 0-0 element of the drinks industry now. I would like to highlight one particular fact though. As a tillage farmer here, sitting talking to you here today, your average pint of beer that's sold, or average bottle of beer, the value of the grain in that beer is 2.5 cents, 3 cents maybe. So you go into your pub and you pay your €5 and €6 for a pint. Just remember that the tillage farmer is only getting 2.5 cents, and they have to make a margin out of that 2.5 cents as well. So I'd just like to highlight that particular fact.
A tiny proportion of it, Bobby, when we're looking at it. Just moving away from the facility, and as you say, look, hopefully you're going to be paid enough. It's going to increase production. You're going to be paid more for your produce in relation to it. If we talk about the weather for a moment, mention it to Adam Woods there to start. We like a wet and a windy May, but as I said to Adam, it's windy, and as he said in his neck of the woods, it cuts you into something similar. From a tillage perspective, Bobby, I presume you're crying out for rain, yeah?
Especially spring crops. I'm sitting here now, and there's a small bit of rain after falling today for the first time in a month, I'd say. There might be another mill of rain. Like, we missed rain. The likes of Cork and other parts of the country did get rain, but around the Midlands here and down to the southeast, we are looking for rain. Ground has gone hard, and that's a terrible thing to say after such a wet spring. But like anyone that does gardening or crops need moisture to perform, and the forecast isn't giving a huge amount of rain either. So look, as my neighbour said to me, you're always giving out about the weather. So we depend on it, and so we have to. A little drop of rain would be nice.
I was speaking to, wasn't a farmer, somebody one day, and they said farmers wanted to rain in one field and they want to dry in another. And I laughed and I agreed. I said, yeah, that is the way we want it. But it is the kind of a month of May. It's again an old saying. It's finding it hard to rain. I suppose that's where we're at the moment. But fingers crossed, it does come for us. Bobby, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to say many thanks for joining me here this evening on the programme, and we'll chat to you again. Okay?
No problem at all, MJ. Thanks for having me again.
Bobby Miller there from the Irish Grain Growers Association, and that is the new Diageo facility in County Kildare. It was opened officially on Monday of this week. I just see here in front of me, Guinness will continue to be brewed at St James's Gate, and other brands including 5 or 6 of the other Diageo products will all be brewed. All the other famous ones basically will be brewed in County Kildare going forward. Now we are moving on from something very different. That is the Badger Biosecurity Scheme is what we're talking about, and we have David Hall. He's IFA Animal Health Chair joining us. David, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
No bother at all. Good to talk to you, MJ.
David, this is your first time speaking to us on the programme. Your predecessor was TJ Maher from County Tipperary. He was on many times with us over the years discussing TB and whatnot. First time speaking to you. We're going to talk about this scheme in a moment, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your enterprise, please. What part are you from?
Right, I'm from Monaghan, up in the Drumlands. Farming here, dairying, milking a couple of robots, 120 odd cows, all year round cattle.
And you're a busy man, but still not busy enough, taking over a national position with the IFA. Animal Health Chair it's a busy one because, look, TB is at the forefront of all our minds, and the new TB plan now has us all thinking about it. We're going to talk about this biosecurity scheme in a moment, but TB, David, in the last few weeks we've seen such changes come into play, and some farmers are struggling to deal with them. If there's a farmer listening and he or she doesn't know what to do with an animal, can they be sold? Can they not be sold? Do I need to do a pre-movement test? What's the best mode of action in relation to this to answer that question?
It's a tricky one, and for the ordinary farmer who's not watching this all the time, it's very confusing, because it's confusing for us that are looking at it every day. I suppose if you're thinking of selling, maybe talk to your mart manager. If you're going to the mart, talk to or some of the staff in the mart office, and they should be fit to give you a bit of guidance. They're a private sale, and you can't speak to the mart, I suppose. Maybe speak to your DVO and get a bit of guidance from them. There are IFA are running events around most of the country in the county executive meetings where they're inviting the Department of Agriculture staff in to give people a wee bit of a guidance. So if you hear of one of them in your area, try and get to it.
Yeah, it's as you say, it can be very confusing. But look, ask for help. That's the key message.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
that's the key message in relation to it. Now, you're still lobbying away on this, David. Are there any aspects of these new TB rules that you're still hammering away at, trying to negotiate on, trying to get sorted out for us?
Yeah, look, we're always pushing for a little bit more on everything, but the main one that we're working on at the moment, and hopefully we may get movement, but we don't know yet, is the cull cows that are over 6 months tested. Currently, if they're sold, they can only go to a controlled feed unit. We feel that they should be fit to go to any dry stock farm that is going to be killing them when they're fit. That was what we believed was agreed with the department and the minister back pre-Christmas, and then when the implementation stage of the programme appeared, it seemed that they had changed that slightly, or maybe if not changed it, had a different interpretation than what we had. But that is affecting the trade for those cows that are over 6 months tested. The farmer either has to fatten them himself or accept that they're only saleable to controlled finishing units, which obviously limits the number of buyers. And it also, for people who buy cattle or cows to feed over the summer or winter, indeed for that matter, it limits the amount of animals that are eligible for them to buy. So it's affecting both the buyers and the sellers.
Yeah, it seems reasonable what you're saying. David, we'll move across now to this Badger Biosecurity Scheme. This was just announced today. Tell us a little bit about this. What's it about, please, David?
It's a scheme to help farmers to improve their farms, to prevent contamination from badgers. The idea would be for drinkers, higher drinkers, that the badgers can't access them, feed troughs that the badgers can't get into, fencing offsets, and maybe some fencing around farmyards, that type of thing.
I see there is maximum expenditure of €2,000 excluding VAT, and there's grant aid covering 40% of the approved biosecurity investment. So at least the department are putting some money behind this, and they're willing to pay you for these measures.
Yeah, look, at any scheme that puts money in farmers' pockets and helps them to mitigate against TB has to be welcomed. We would have liked the lower limit to be a bit lower. If someone just needs one item or a small item, they wouldn't be eligible if it's under €500. Again, if someone has maybe a fairly major investment to do on their farm, 2,000 doesn't go very far nowadays. And we also would have liked it maybe to be targeted at the farmers who are currently dealing with a TB outbreak. From what I understand, it's first come, first served, and there's a maximum of 7,500 participants. So if that had been targeted, that the people who are already in a TB breakdown would have first preference, it would have been preferable. But at the same time, anything helps.
Yeah, anything helps is right. David, I'm going to say many thanks for joining me here on the programme. We will be speaking to you again during your tenure as Animal Health Chair. Thanks for this evening, and speak to you again, David.
Thanks very much, MJ. Thank you.
David Hall there, IFA Animal Health Chair, and that is called the Badger Biosecurity Scheme. And there is maximum grant, as we spoke about there, of €2,000. It opened today and it is remaining open until 31st of May 2026. So I am presuming, don't quote me on this, that you can apply through AgFood. But if you're interested in that, or it's something that may be of benefit to your farm, then chat to your farm advisor and they will give you more guidance in relation to it. One thing before I go to a break, saw this on tomorrow's Farmers Journal, plans to cover outdoor slurry storage ditched. So this is big news for dairy farmers more so than anybody else. Not saying you don't have an outdoor slurry storage unit if you're not a dairy farmer, but probability is you don't. So the Department of Agriculture has dropped plans requiring uncovered slurry tanks to be roofed by the end of 2027. I believe, basically, looking through the studies, that the crust on the slurry is deemed to be good enough to keep emissions at bay. So that's a big one. If you have an outdoor lagoon, you do not have to cover it now, according to the Journal tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, pick up a copy and you can have a look at it. But a big cost saving there, should that apply to you, which is beneficial. Given the way 2026 is going, I don't think there's going to be much money left for capital investment this year, but time will tell. Now, coming up after the break, we're moving across to mushrooms. Donal Gernan from Teagasc tells us how mushroom growers are tackling huge price increases, huge input cost increases, I should say. I don't think the price is increasing along with it, and we're going to hear about that in just a moment.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
Brought to you by W.R. Shaw, where New Holland isn't just a brand, it's our passion. For over 40 years, we've been Ireland's trusted name for New Holland tractors, parts and farm machinery. Whether you need new, used or ex-hire tractors, we've got you covered. WRShaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now we're moving on to mushrooms for the next few minutes here on the programme. Donal Gernan from Teagasc joins me. Donal, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Thanks, MJ. Thanks for having me on.
You're more than welcome, Donal. So last Friday, 8th of May, there was a Mushroom Innovation Day. Teagasc held it. So look, obviously the people who attended that day were in the industry, mushroom growers. What we're going to chat about this evening is a kind of a very straightforward look at the mushroom industry for people who are not involved but who can appreciate another area of agriculture that's going through significant challenge. Before we get into mushrooms, Donal, you're an expert in this area. How did you get into this area in Teagasc? Of all the areas, how did you end up in mushrooms?
Yeah, it's a strange one. I'm a graduate myself, so I graduated from DKIT, and I suppose when I was finished my degree, I applied for a job with Monaghan Mushrooms, and I worked my way up the ladder with Monaghan Mushrooms. And I suppose a job came up with Teagasc as a mushroom advisor, and I applied for it, and I've been in the job this last 11 years, so that was my unique way into mushrooms. I didn't know anything about mushrooms before that.
Yeah, well, there's always an interesting path into these areas. And when we think about mushrooms here, Donal, in Ireland, we think about the little blue plastic packet, and we think about the nice white, bright mushrooms and the cellophane top. And that's our, I suppose, what would you say, childhood memory or affiliation with mushrooms for years and years. But the amount of individuals and organisations growing these little mushrooms has dwindled, as you'd imagine. What are we down to now? How many people or companies, organisations are actually in the mushroom industry in Ireland now?
Yeah, so I suppose we've got 25 mushroom producers on the island, in the Republic of Ireland, of which there are 32 farms. So there's some larger companies that would have multiple farms. So 25 growers growing on 32 farms.
I'm looking here at your press release. So part of it, and I mentioned this at the outset of the programme, it was highlighted that there was a 78% increase in input costs in the mushroom sector since 2020. So how are people managing to stay in business, Donal, I suppose, is the question?
Yeah, well, I suppose since the war in Ukraine and COVID, we've seen big input cost increases. I suppose the main driver in that is labour costs increasing, and we have seen some fallers in the industry over the last 6 years. And I suppose the way they're looking to alleviate that now is to maybe reduce labour costs. It's the obvious one, And because mushroom production is very labour intensive, every mushroom you see in your punnet is all handpicked. So there's quite a tedious process that's involved in that. It's you have to pick the mushroom from a crop, you have to trim the stalk, place in the punnet. The punnets need to be weighed. Those weighed punnets then goes into an outer crate, which then is transported to a pack house. So there's a lot of moving parts in that, and it's very labour intensive. So that's the key area that the mushroom industry is looking at to try and reduce overall input costs.
And I presume it's some sort of a robot picker, and people who are interested in different areas of agriculture, including dairy, for example. Our previous speaker, he mentioned he's a robot milker from your neck of the woods, actually, David Hall. He's from County Monaghan. He has 2 robots milking for him. So is this what mushroom farmers are looking at now, getting robots in to do the work? Yeah,
well, it's robotics and semi-robotics, we call it in the industry. So robotics is that full process where you're harvesting the mushrooms and getting the mushroom into a punnet. That's a fully robotic system. The industry is also looking at semi-robotics, semi-automated systems, basically where mushrooms are still manually harvested by people, but essentially the people can double their output because a lot of the other tedious jobs that's involved, such as trimming the stalk, weighing the punnets, getting the punnet then to a pack house, all that side of it is automated. So essentially you'd need half the amount of people on your farm.
And are these machines...
2 elements that go.
Yeah, are they available? Like, are they on the market done? Are they in prototype position? Or are they available? Can you buy them? Or like, how does it work?
Yeah, you can buy them. They're on the market. I suppose there's 5 or 6 different systems that's available globally. And part of my job last week was to get all these innovative systems into the country, these company suppliers, to present to Irish mushroom industry. Some are at still a prototype stage, whereas some is very, very advanced. So yeah, there are different stages of advancement, but they're getting quite close. I suppose one of the biggest constraints is just the capital cost that's involved. You're not talking hundreds of thousands, you're talking millions to automate these mushroom farms.
Yeah, well, there you go. That was exactly where I was going with this. If it's an industry that's struggling to make money, and then if your capital cost, I didn't know it would be in the millions, but if it's in that territory, how do you make it stack up, or is it possible?
It's possible when you see the potential return on investment for the systems, and essentially we have no other choice but to automate, because essentially we're trying to hold on to our share in the UK marketplace. I suppose the Irish export 85% of the mushrooms we produce to the UK, and we are directly competing with the Polish mushroom industry. So they're importing, I suppose, a third of what the UK market consumes into the UK, and we're just trying to hold on to what we have. So we've got a large proportion of the retail market space, and we want to hold on to that and potentially then grow into the food service space.
Yeah, correlation.
So we've no other choice. With inputs going up, we have to automate.
Yeah, a correlation can be drawn with beef farming. So we export, as we said, 90% of our beef. Now, it's not all to the UK, but it's about half it goes over to the UK. So if we're exporting 80% of our mushrooms, it's something similar. The thought just crosses my mind, the UK market. Why don't they produce more of their own mushrooms? Done a big area and lots of entrepreneurial individuals over there. What's the reason for that?
Well, I suppose the biggest players in the UK market, or the biggest growers in the UK market, are actually Irish companies. So you've got Monaghan Mushrooms, who've got a big presence in the UK market with their own farms. You've also got Walsh Mushrooms, Hughes's Mushrooms. So a lot of the UK grown mushrooms are actually from Irish producers. But I suppose the biggest constraint why they can't grow their market is the availability of mushroom compost. There's only 2 compost suppliers in the UK, and I suppose trying to build a new compost yard is very difficult and it's very costly. So I suppose that's the biggest constraint for them to grow. They're actually importing compost from Ireland and the continent. So that's their biggest constraint to expand in, I suppose.
Yeah, and speaking of compost, here in the Midlands, David, peat obviously a big part of people's lives in this part of the world, and issues over the course of the last number of years about finishing up with peat production, peat harvesting. How has that affected the mushroom industry?
Yeah, well, the industry is now trying to navigate its way to growing on peat-free materials. So there is a lot of research going into that from ourselves within Teagasc, but also these large companies within the mushroom industry, they're doing their own research to find alternative sources of peat. And that progress is going very well. It's probably taken longer than expected, but it is a completely different growing medium. And it's a completely different way we have to grow mushrooms going forward. So it's not an easy, quick fix, but there certainly is the right steps that are being made to transition to peat-free materials. I
don't think anything about the industry is easy, Donal. Very resilient individuals involved in it. I have to finish up by asking you, Donal, you're dealing with mushrooms, you're talking about mushrooms. Do you still eat mushrooms?
Of course I do, yeah.
And tell us, what is your favourite way to cook mushrooms? Or have you a mushroom recipe for us that is going to get people's lips tingling with the potential thought of how you cook them?
I'm no Gordon Ramsay, but the best way I'd like to cook them is just throw them in a frying pan, a bit of garlic butter, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue with that. Donal, really interesting chat with you for the last few minutes, I have to say, and loads of correlations can be drawn with the mushroom industry and indeed with other areas of agriculture. Loads of challenges there, but you have people who are thinking outside the box at all times, so we like to see that, and we will speak to you again on the programme. Many thanks, Donal.
Thanks, MJ. All the best.
Donal Gernan there from Teagasc, and yeah, look, we hear about challenge. What a challenging industry it is, the mushroom industry, but down to about 20 odd producers, and they are sticking at it. But when you hear about the costs involved in automation, huge costs, and it is something that is it's such a hard industry. Always has been. I've featured here in the programme a number of times, not too many, but a number of times over the last number of years, and again, labour. But don't we hear that in all of our different areas of agriculture? Labour. That is the problem for everybody. Now, coming up after the break, we are going to be talking to Nicholas Sweetman. He is from the Irish Forest Owners IFO Association, and it's about a couple of forest walks. They're taking place in County Offaly, County Laois. They're aimed at the family. They're free. Stay tuned and you're going to hear about them in a moment.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw. Looking for the best in farm machinery? We've been supplying top quality New Holland tractors and parts and providing service since 1982. Our expert team is here to keep your farm running smoothly with branches in Tullamore and Carlow. Visit wrshaw.ie today.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now, families are encouraged to enjoy a free walk in the woods. Forestry walks, talks and activities. The man who's going to tell us all about it is Nicholas Sweetman from the Irish Forest Owners, the IFO. Nicholas, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
No problem. Very glad to do it.
The IFO, before we talk about the walk in the woods, Irish Forest Owners, who's involved in this group of people, please, Nicholas?
We're a non-profit group for forest owners, producer groups. We have members from as far away as Donegal to Wexford, so right across the country. We represent forest owners and their concerns, and we, promote forestry in general. I would put it like that.
How long have you been a forest owner yourself, Nicholas? How long have you been in the area, in the industry, I should say?
I remember planting trees in the late 1950s. So very good. And that is a long time. In that case, my father planted trees before me, so I've been planting trees all my life.
So it's a generational thing in your family, and we're talking.
Yes.
We're talking about the event. It's a walk in the woods. So we have County Offaly and County Laois also up in County Meath on May 16th, Sunday the 17th here in the Midlands, 23rd up in Ashbourne and County Meath. Tell us a little bit about this, Nicholas. What exactly is on offer?
Well, first thing I should say is that all the information that is relevant, and there's a lot of information, is all available on eventbrite.ie. So I would suggest anybody who's interested should go there. But the walks are a way in which a family, or indeed individuals who are interested in forestry and seeing how it operates, get a lot of information by attending. So, for instance, starting on Saturday the 16th in Derrybeg, County Offaly, Joe Deering is allowing his forest to be used as a demo site, if you like. So there will be everything from forest bathing, biodiversity walks, meet the forest owner, forest school sessions, why plant trees sessions, local crafts, pole lay demonstrations, a variety of activities, all going on from 9 in the morning until about 4:30. You don't have to attend all day. You should come prepared to do a little walking perhaps, but not too much. It's suitable for everybody. And it's guaranteed. And that's on Saturday. And he's in Carrickmead, Dysart in Laois, and his programme is very similar. And on the following Saturday, the 23rd, we have Kieran Buxley up in Ballybin in Ashbourne, and his operation is also similar. There are variations between the sites because obviously everybody's wood is different, but there's a great variety of stuff going on, and it's guaranteed to be of interest. You will find something of interest. Everybody will find something of interest going on in each of those places.
You mentioned at the outset there, Nicholas, we're talking about the different activities occurring in each of the walks. One of them is forest bathing. I've covered forest bathing here on the programme a couple of times, something I'm quite interested in. Now, obviously, you've been, I'd say, forest bathing your entire life, seeing as you own a forest.
You could say that.
But for the uninitiated, tell us, what is forest bathing?
Okay, well, a short description would be that it's a guided walk designed to help you relax and reconnect with nature. Depending on who's leading it, you might get a different perspective, but in each case, it's a wellness exercise using the forest as, if you like, a medium to get psychological benefit. And when I say that, it's something everybody can enjoy. It gives you a chance to really relax and reconnect with what is around your surroundings. So it's a Japanese idea in the first place, I think, although I can't swear to that. But it's certainly taking off in Ireland in recent past. You'll find several places where you can do forest bathing, and there are a few different practitioners around the country. The first one, as far as I'm aware, is led by Mary Martin, and I'm not quite sure. Cat Beneath the Canopy is leading the one up in Ashbourne, as far as I know. But, it'd be an interesting experience for anybody who hasn't done it before, and suitable for adults and children alike.
For someone like yourself, Nicholas, who has been involved in forests all their lives, and we're just speaking about, forest bathing or walking among trees or just immersing yourself in nature, you must be an advocate of it, just seeing that the mental health benefits there are from this.
Yeah, there's definitely that. But there's also, a lot of other reasons to plant forestry. I have to be completely candid. When we started planting trees, it was for commercial reasons, and that alone. But over the years, I've seen other benefits, obviously. But there's still a very good commercial reason for planting forestry in Ireland, and we need it badly. We have huge requirements for reducing emissions in this country, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to plant a forest. And in fact, it's the most efficient way of sequestering carbon that exists, and certainly worldwide, it's one that's well recognised. Unfortunately, the culture of forestry in Ireland is not well developed, and we have the lowest forest cover rate in continental Europe, or indeed in most countries in the world that can grow trees. And surprisingly, we have the very best conditions probably in the world for growing trees. Yet we have a very, I would say, uneven interest in growing trees. We don't seem to see them as a legitimate farm enterprise, which they definitely are. In fact, they're the second most profitable farm enterprise that exists after dairying.
On another evening, Nicholas, I must get you back on the programme, and we get into the metrics of it. But unfortunately, for the purposes of this evening, I'm gonna have to say goodbye and thank you for joining me this evening.
Oh, not at all. Delighted. Just encourage everybody to have a day out, and you'll enjoy the day. Many thanks, Nicholas. Thanks, MJ. Thank you. Bye-bye.
IFO Chairman there, Nicholas Sweetman. And those days are Saturday 16th, so this coming Saturday, Derrybeg in Offaly. On Sunday 16th then, Dysart in Laois, and then Ashbourne the following week. And if you go on onto eventbrite.ie. Pop in Eventbrite and pop in a walk in the woods, and it will pop up free events and something for everybody. Now, that is it for this evening's programme. I would like to thank all of my guests here over the course of the last hour. We started off with Adam Woods from the Farmers Journal about Brazilian beef potentially being banned from Europe. Bobby Miller gave us a rundown on the new facility which Diageo have opened in County Kildare. David Hall, Animal Health Chair from the IFA, about TB. If you are worried about TB rules, can you sell an animal? Ring your DVO, ring your Mart with the tag number, and they will be able to help you. That was his advice. And then we moved on to Donald Gernon from Teagasc, gave us a great rundown on the mushroom industry, the ever-challenging mushroom industry. And finally there, a walk in the woods coming up this weekend in County Offaly and County Laois. Now, that is it for this evening, and I will be back with you next Wednesday evening. As always, it will be the 20th of May. This is the first Wednesday, second Wednesday. Is it the third week? I have said hopefully a little bit of kindness over the course of the next number of days. So fingers crossed we get it, because that blowing wind is not good for much, and we're looking for some nice kind weather. Maybe a little bit of rain will bring that. The show is repeated on Sunday morning 7 a.m. through to 8 a.m. and you can get us wherever you get your podcast. Type in MJ space Clery, Clery, and we will pop up. You can listen at your leisure. We'll speak to you in 7 days' time. Good evening.